because he's feeling good about LA, but yeah.
Well, because he feels like he has to get in while he can.
Either way, though, either the Clippers or the Warriors, whoever is headed to the offseason tonight, it's going to be a weird offseason, one of a lot of...
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
It's OverDrive for your Wednesday afternoon here on TSN 4, TSN 1050, TSN's YouTube channel. My name is Aaron Korolnik, in for Brian Hayes, joined by Jamie McLennan and Jeff O'Neill. Fellas, great to see you. How we doing today? Revenge of the Nerds.
That's as well.
AI-driven.
AI-driven, bringing robots and different people in with philosophies and calculations. Crazy stuff out there. So we have to jump on board if we're going to keep up with the times. Why not?
Well, when they were trying to figure out who was going to replace Brian today, apparently our bosses, Mike Lane and Steph Appolito, they asked ChatGPT, and my name came up first.
Love it.
And it sounds like that's kind of how the Maple Leafs were operating leading into the trade deadline. And if you missed it, the big story in the city of Toronto, The Athletic came out with this story. It was CJ, it was Jonas, it was James Myrtle, and it detailed what has been just a treacherous season top to bottom for the Maple Leafs, which does conclude tonight on TSN 1050, I may add. And I want to encourage everybody, don't watch this game on TV. Watch this, or listen to this game on the radio because it's Joe Bowen's final call, 44 years. Just mute it and throw on Bonesy and enjoy. But this story, man, whew, there's a lot to it. And I'm curious to know how you guys reacted to it. What was the number one takeaway, Noodles?
I mean, I was in shock because we know it. Like, we lived it. Everybody in the media, the fan base, throughout the season, it was just a bad season. You know, injuries, inconsistencies, all of that. But what the article did was kind of laid out like you forgot. I was like, oh, I forgot that happened. I forgot that. Like it went through a timeline of how chaotic it was. And then, it threw in, by the way, Keith Pelly inserted himself into meetings at the trade deadline, and there's a guy with a computer going, hey, AI. Like, it was, I don't know what was going on. Pets' heads were falling off. Again, I'm not 100% sure everything is accurate. It's all sources, right? This is what hearsay, all of that. I'm not taking a shot at Jonas and Myrtle or CJ because those guys are, they do their job and they're not going to report anything that they haven't heard or believe in. But I just think even if this is 95% or 90% true of how it was laid out, it's chaotic, and that's concerning.
So, let me just read you what Jonas and CJ Myrtle wrote in this article in The Athletic. Keith Pelly didn't come empty-handed to the trade deadline. He had notes that included possible trade returns that Leaf staff members believed were generated by large language models and artificial intelligence, tools that have become increasingly influential at the top of MLSE and hadn't been part of the usual process with the team. The belief among staffers was that Pelly's AI musings were coming directly from a guy by the name of Hamza Tarani, who is one of Pelly's most trusted advisors. He's a guy about data and innovation. So there's a lot of data-driven stuff going on with this team behind the scenes, including at the trade deadline where, again, we remember Pelly's press conference where he talked about Michael Hage and Radim Murtka, the top prospects for Montreal and Buffalo. And a lot of people were wondering, where do you get those names from? Well, I think we have the answer there.
The guys, there's so many different layers to this, but I think if you just put it all into one blender and you look at the season and all that's got on and all of the nonsense involved, I actually think the brand is taking a hit. And Keith Pelly, when he first took this job, said this is the most powerful hockey brand in the sport. It's certainly the most valuable. And then you see all of this nonsense going on. And let me be very clear about one thing. I think kids growing up these days, AK, I have no idea who you cheered for. Jamie, I'm pretty sure you cheered for the Edmonton Oilers. But people my age and a little younger and a little older, it was like religion, where you grew up and you were a Maple Leaf fan. I don't think kids are like that anymore. I think they grow up and they like Steven Stamkos, they like Nathan McKinnon, they like the Colorado Avalanche and Minnesota Wild and Anaheim Ducks and Leo Carlson. I don't think the religion stuff happens anymore where they're just born in with a blue jersey on and they love it immediately. And I think the brand is like taking a hit when you see all this nonsense. When you learn that the kid skating around waving the flag had to pay $1,000. And when I talk about the brand taking a hit, I'm talking about on multiple different levels, okay? So you got to watch the guy skating around, the kid skating around with the flag, and he had to pay $1,000 plus he had to buy tickets. But within the organization, you're hearing of the AHL team used to fly to places like Laval. Now they take a bus. That's taking a hit like within the organization because guys that want to maybe sign minor league deals in Toronto, they're like, maybe it's not as good as everybody thinks. Gassing the dad's trip, like the apparel stuff. I remember when I played for the Maple Leafs, if I wanted some, like whatever, like it was the classiest, best organization that way ever. And you just hear all of this stuff. And for Keith Pelly to show up at this meeting he said himself he does not want to deal with the minutia of the day-to-day. He doesn't want to know who's playing, care about left wing or this and that. What the hell is he even doing in there? And it just makes you think that all of this is just one of the biggest problems about the organization where it's just all about money, man.
Well,
like they make so much money and all of this stuff is just nonsense. So what is it, that they just only care about the bottom line? It certainly seems that way because hockey people should be doing hockey work, and that's just the way it is. I talked about the Carolina Hurricanes. There's Tom Dundon, who's not my favorite owner in the world, and then there's the GM, and then there's Rod Brind'Amour and some great guys around him. And they win a damn lot of hockey games. A lot.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple chain of command. It's not all this nonsense with the board and all of this stuff and guys walking around with robots in a room to spit out calculations on what to trade assets for. It's all not. I'm embarrassed by this, man. I can't even believe what I was reading today. And you just pile all of it on top. Like if you were, I tweeted out today, like if I was a great player and I found out the guy running the hockey operation had some kind of weird scientist that he had no idea that was in the war room running the operation, I'd be like, what the hell's going on here? Well, I want to buy into this and believe in this.
We have Chris.
What the hell's going on here? R2-D2 is in the war room.
Chris Johnston's going to come on in about 25 minutes, so he'll answer all the questions we have. And I think your points are well made, and I completely agree. Yeah. And when you consider the fact that, and we'll see what CJ says about when Pelly was in the room at the trade deadline. Like, do I think, Brad Treliving and the pro scouts, everyone's in there, we're talking about let's do this, let's do that. And Pelly's like, actually, ChatGPT says we should get a third instead of a fourth for this guy. I don't know if that's exactly how it played out, but I can't even fathom if I'm Brad Treliving, been around hockey my whole life, been a general manager for a long time, if the CEO of MLSE is in the room as I'm trying to conduct my business. I mean, again, it's not to excuse. That's got to be a very tough spot for Treliving, and clearly the trade deadline did not go well this year, certainly did not go well the year prior, but it also speaks to a complete lack of trust that Pelly had in the current group of managers with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's clearly has been demonstrated by the fact that they gassed Treliving, and they're looking for their next person who's got to fall in line with what Pelly envisions this team needs to be.
But that's I think the most... I guess, AKO, you could speak to it like we know this market. I think that's probably the most scary thing for people that you talk to on the street is like, okay, we know the result right now. We know where the Leafs are, okay? So the biggest question is, where do they go from here, and who is the person that's going to drive the bus to do that? If they're in the ditch or in the ocean or off a cliff, however you want to term it, where do they go from here? And do people believe that Keith Pelly can choose the right person or people, because I do believe there should be multiple people involved, to help get that car or bus or whatever you name out of the ditch, out of the lake, back onto the road and heading back into where they were a year ago, a calendar year ago? That's the biggest challenge for this group. And I think that's where, when you look at it from a fan base standpoint, and even in the media, they're asking, like, okay, who's the guy in line? And if it's, I don't want to butcher his name because I don't even know it. It's the first time I've heard it, Keith Pelly's right-hand man that, you're calling R2-D2. Like, at the end of the day,
yes,
this is, if he's an advisor or he's, an AI expert, all of that, I'm sure he is. But that doesn't give you an opportunity for feel, for somebody to run a culture, to reestablish, like, we need a culture here of winning, of picking the right people in that dressing room. It might not just be data-driven. You need quality humans to help dig this out and the right people to drive the bus. And that's what's concerning for me. Is Keith Pelly the guy to do it? Well, right now he is. So he better make the right decision or decisions with his management team to get this group going, because right now it doesn't look very good.
Jamie, a lot, and people can come at me with numbers and whatever stat packs. Everybody knows I'm just not a believer in it in the best league in the world when it comes to hiring, decision-making, the way you play. I just think you get quality people that are smart and they understand what it takes in every capacity, from players to trainers to coaches to management to a president. Like, that's what you need. And to hire the right people, it is not that difficult to do in this business. To target a couple people and say, we need this guy to take us out of the ditch. And I think when you don't know what you're doing, you rely on all this other nonsense. You relied on outside sources, hockey experts, or however he described them. What did he call them? Hockey
observers.
Observers, hockey observers. When you're relying on this nonsense, I think you don't know. I think you don't know which lane to go down, and that's why you rely on stuff.
See,
like, I understand smart people. Some have a philosophy where they don't want to be the smartest person in the room, and they want to listen and they want to take in, different advice and different points from other people, which is a great thing to do if you're in a leadership position. But this just seems like complete chaos, and it's a mess. And I don't understand how, like, this guy would have a PR person to kind of go over stuff, prep stuff, much like Rick Bowness. I don't know how a PR guy didn't grab Rick Bowness last night and said, I don't think you're speaking to the media tonight, because that was the end of him in Columbus, and he probably knows that today. But I don't know. It just seems chaotic, and like I said, brand taking a hit. From players wondering about their future, to players wanting to sign, to possible management figures wanting to come in here, I think all-encompassing, the brand is taking a hit.
Well, let me jump on two things that you just talked about. However Keith Pelly arrives at his decision, I agree. You surround yourself with people that you believe can get the job done. I don't mind taking data, but it's a piece of it. I don't mind talking to an old school person who's been around the game for 60 years. I think you've got to migrate everything. And they have the resources. And what I mean by that is MLSE, the financial resources to have no stone unturned. And that's what he needs to be doing. Whatever avenue he heads down, I'm fine with it. He's hired a firm, an outside, Neil Glassberg's firm. No problem. But also, head down different paths to make sure that you get the right 5 or 10 people that you can interview seriously for the job, not people that, think they can do it because they've sat on their couch and watched the Leafs for 40 years. I think that's the biggest challenge for Keith. And as far as the brand, I don't disagree with you, because people just want to migrate. There's so many people I talk to in this city that just
Your kid likes the Minnesota Wild, not because his dad played for them. He likes a player on the team, doesn't he?
He does. And listen, my son is 8, so he's very impressionable. But you're right. He does like the Wild. He boos when certain guys come on the screen because he's like, that guy took away our gold medal. I'm like, all right, relax here. Like, the point being is, it is impressionable. It isn't just ingrained in the new generation that this is how they're going to follow. So the Leafs brand, slightly tarnished, but they can get it back if the right people are hired. And then, to your point, take a step back and allow hockey people, the people that you trust, to be in that room. Let them do their job.
They can't stop themselves, though, Jamie. I think when Shanny came here, he told people, like, you got to just leave me alone and let me do my job here. I don't need some guy in a $4,000 gray suit to sit around a table and try to tell me what to do with this hockey team. Do I have to ask for approval if there is dollars involved in a signing or a trade? Possibly. But input and advice, and it goes back to Dave Naylor's classic quote. You give anyone in any type of leadership, ownership role 6 beers and put them in a video room, you're going to have serious damn problems. And that was a great line. He's like, you put these, they think they own it and you can do whatever you want. You give them 6 beers and put them in a video room and they start thinking they know what the hell they're talking about. You got massive problem on your hands.
And AK,
massive.
Just before we get back to you, the second comment, if I'm the owner of Columbus, I rehire Bowness.
Well, we'll get to Bowness momentarily, but I want to talk about just the importance of tonight's game, not only from Joe Bowen's perspective. Again, the game's on TSN 1050. You got to tune in and listen to Bonesy's final call. He's going to join us in about 45 minutes. Really excited about that. But I think the dysfunction from this organization and really the meaning of this game, and of course it is extraordinarily important for this team to lose tonight's game to ensure they keep their 41% chance at keeping their own draft pick this year, because if they were to win, Seattle, it loses out, all of a sudden it falls to 15% and it just gets even worse.
Yeah.
But the dysfunction and the chaos and just how they were completely unwilling or unable to navigate the most logical thing that everybody else knew what was the right approach. Losing hockey games down the stretch when they were already eliminated from the playoffs, essentially, and they continued to run Joe Wall out there and Anthony Stolarz out there and Matthew Nyes, all these guys that kept on playing in Florida. They were sitting all their guys, and it didn't work for Florida. They continue to win somehow, but you just wonder how different it could be and just how amazing it would be for this organization if they got a win, a lottery win, a they did it Naylor moment for the Toronto Maple Leafs on May the 5th or May the 7th, whenever the draft lottery is, which will probably be like an 8% chance of happening. But you wonder if they had any idea what they were doing, if there was any cohesion within the organization from the assistant GMs to the guys taking over for Tree Living, from Tree Living to Berube. It just seemed like nobody was in line with one another, and that caused them to win so many games that they had no business winning, and that could very well be a huge issue for them if the lottery balls don't go their way. It was completely avoidable. They screwed it up in the worst way possible.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's another chapter in the book, and there's probably about 30 chapters right now of this season. And I forgot about the Stolarz comments. When were they? That seems like early. That was 3 years ago. But it was
How'd that work out for him? He was never even close to being the same goaltender since he made those ridiculous comments.
I understand.
And Stolarz, I'm glad you brought him up, Jamie, because there's a direct connection between Anthony Stolarz and Rick Bowness. And you and I both, all three of us are old school guys, and we respected the comments of Rick Bowness.
Right.
They were truthful, and those guys need to hear some of that stuff. But here's how you play that game. And Rick, I'm sure, woke up this morning and thought about it, and he knows this. And I love the guy. I respect him a lot, and he's a lifer around the game. Yeah. The only way you play that is you go out there and you say, you know what? We got some things to learn, but they gave it their all tonight. Complete fabricated lie. And then you deal with them inside the locker room. And you tell them, if I'm back, I'm going to change the culture. Same as Stolarz in Toronto. Yeah. He had to go out in front of the media and say, you know what? We worked so hard tonight, I cannot believe we didn't get those 2 points. Everybody busted their ass. But instead, he separated himself from the team to make himself look like a hero, and then everybody hates your guts. You lose your mind on your teammates, and then you go out to the media and say, you know what, they worked so hard, I'm proud of the guys, we just couldn't get it done tonight. Yeah, complete lie. I just think that those type of comments need to be kept in-house, because when you make them out in public like that, you're separating yourself from the group, and you're saying, those guys over there are a bunch of losers. And then they say, oh, okay, thanks a lot. You're just the best coach ever. Like, you just, all you do is you're an amazing coach and we suck. You can tell them to their face what you think and say, we got to move on and be different than this, or whatever the hell you want to say to the guys. But you don't separate yourself and say, they're a bunch of losers and they don't care. I care a lot. I care so much. I'm so passionate right now. My hair's a mess. I'm pissed off. I want to cry. And the guys are looking at that and say, oh, way to go, Rick. Like, you're the only one that cares. I bet you today if you asked him, he would say, I wish I could do it over again.
Let's play Rick Bowness.
Let's
play it again. Just set the stage. Columbus, complete 18-wheeler down the stretch. They were second in the Metro with 11 games to go. 2-8-1. They lost their last 6 at home. And here's Rick Bowness, their head coach, following last night's finale.
Have you ever been part of something that's as frustrating as this has been down the stretch?
No. And you know what? All you got to do is look at the stat sheet. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. Like, I don't know if I'm back, but if I'm back, I'm changing this culture. These guys, they don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them. Like, how can you go out and play like that? Should have done this about a month ago. But this is why we are where we are. This is why we're out of the playoffs. That kind of effort. Losing, you have to hate losing. I don't care if it's a meaningless game. I don't care. Show up and compete. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. What else you want to know?
You reached them for so long after you got here. How did it stop? Where did it stop?
Because it got tough. Because it got hard. Like we talked about after the Olympic break. It's going to get harder. So everything's good as long as it's going their way. And now it gets tough, we don't want to battle back. And that's what's happened over the last a couple of weeks. That's all that's happened. We're going to change that. If I'm back, I don't know if I'm back. Don and I will talk. We'll get to that. But man, oh man, some of those guys are so lucky the season's over and there's no practice tomorrow. Anyways, and there's no more games. What else you want to know?
I think even in the long history of this franchise, I don't think they've ever lost 6 games in a row to end a season at home.
No.
Is that worse?
It's terrible. Inexcusable. If they're not embarrassed by, not only tonight, by that, they're on the wrong team. They are. They got to be embarrassed with that.
It's
like
so
those
much
are things you can tell that directly to the players. Right there, you're separating yourself, and this just brings apart another big problem, guys. And we talked about it with Detroit. You get these guys, and you fall in love with them, and you marry them, and you sign them to long-term contracts, and you're stuck with them year after year. You don't think Columbus would like to make a blockbuster deal, but they're screwed. They're married to that group of guys in year after year. This upcoming season, Donnie Waddell, who's a great guy, he's got to go to his fan base and say, we really believe in these guys. No, you don't. Year after year, they do not make the playoffs, and you got to go to war with them. Bunch of guys locked in long-term that'll stick up their middle finger if you ask them if they want to get traded. It's disastrous. The league's...
Here's what I would say. I would ask this question. I guarantee you, if he's taken it public, he's probably had that conversation with these guys probably several times. This isn't just a one-off. This isn't like he woke up and last night triggered him off. They were 2-8-1. He's seeing something, and he even said, I should have done this a month ago, and maybe that would have jarred the group. Now, reading their comments today, Zach Werenski backed him and said, listen, maybe this guy can teach us to win. The only reason why I said, and I disagree with you, but I think there's a different pathway here. If I'm the owner of that team, I go to Rick Bowness, who's been around the game. He's coming 72 next January. What does he care? They pulled him out of retirement to come and coach this team. So whether it's his last opportunity to coach or he's going to coach next year, I think he was just being honest. But if I'm the owner, I say to him, okay, what needs to change? Because Rick Bowness, it wasn't that long ago, he said that about Winnipeg. And they tweaked a couple things. Few people came out of that room. All of a sudden, off to the races they go. They win the President's Trophy. Like, to me, I think there is a group there that he sees potential in, but he's frustrated. And you're right, maybe that's not the spot to do it. But at the end of the day, I'd like to know the backstory of what was being said leading up to that.
Yeah, and again, Columbus, when they hired Bowness, they went on a heater, and then things just went off the rails right at the end of the season. But again, much like the Maple Leafs, Columbus is going to face the same dilemma, just as O said. It's hard to make trades in the NHL with the no-trade clauses. What percentage of the NHL has a no-trade clause, at least a modified no-trade clause, more than 30%, something like that? It's crazy. And all the best players have them because that's the leverage they have in their contract negotiations. And that really stifles creativity and the ability for a team to make moves. That's why you got to be careful about who you commit to long term. And I'm sure there's a lot of teams around the NHL that are regretting a lot of the decisions they made considering the circumstances. So Chris Johnston is going to join us coming up in about 5 minutes. We'll talk about that bombshell of an article that he and James Myrtle and Jonas Siegel wrote in The Athletic today. We'll talk about the future of Craig Berube. Is he coaching his last game tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs? The game you could hear on TSN 1050. It's the Leafs and the Sens. It's Joe Bowen's farewell. Make sure to tune in on TSN 1050. CJ on the other side. You're watching and listening to OverDrive.
All new Scrubs, tonight, 7:30, 10 Central on CTV, and stream tomorrow on Crave.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continues. It's brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. I'm Aaron Korolnik in for Brian Hayes today. Jeff O'Neill, Jamie McLennan until 6 o'clock. Again, Joe Bowen, the farewell after 44 years at 7 o'clock right here on TSN 1050. And Bonesy's going to join the show at 5 o'clock. What do you think Bonesy's mentality is today? You think it's relief? You think it's anticipation?
Wow. I think from the gift that he posted in his hotel room, he might just be trying to shake the cobwebs off and
I saw that.
To perform.
You're talking about the bottle of Crown Royal that someone from the Maple Leafs left for Bonesy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine there's a ton of that left right now.
Wow. After the game, Bonesy, and we'll ask him when he joins us again just after 5. But the biggest story in the Toronto sports scene today is the article written by Chris Johnston, Jonas Siegel, and James Myrtle in The Athletic that detailed just a chaotic season, a dysfunctional season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And CJ joins us now here on Overdrive. And Chris, I'm sure you've had a lot of people reaching out to you today across the National Hockey League asking you about this article. I think one thing a lot of people, and I know O talked about this earlier, the trade deadline and the use of AI and large language models by Keith Pelly at the trade deadline. Can you explain exactly what that means to us?
Well, I mean, I should start right at the beginning here. Keith Pelly says he didn't use these things to actually influence what was happening. I think it was more information that he brought into the room from people within the organization he trusts. And look, AI is definitely a big part of what MLSE at the very top levels wants to be looking for gains in, looking for better workflow situations. I think the Raptors and Toronto FC, appear to have brought it into their programs a little more than we've seen with the Leafs so far. But, the fact that he had these papers or this kind of information, I think it just caught some people off guard. And, I do think two things are true at the same time. When Keith Pelly says he was just observing in the room, I do believe him when he says that. Like, I don't think he went in there with any intention to say, hey, we got to get this right shot D for this guy. Like, I don't think he was trying by any means to dictate what happened. But at the same time, you have to recognize he's the CEO of the company, and there's a lot of scouts and other people that would be in those meetings that aren't probably used to being around someone like that. And maybe when he voices an opinion, do you want to be the guy if you're a scout that says, actually, I think that's a terrible idea. We should go do this instead. I mean, I just think it created a dynamic in that room that was a little strange, uncomfortable, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the deadline was the deadline. I'm not presenting any of this, or we're not, as a means of explaining, excuse for anybody. I think the Leafs did what they could at what was a kind of let's face it, it was pretty much a deadline around the league. There wasn't a lot of action. The Leafs wanted to be more busy, and they got what they could get done at that period on March 6th.
CJ, you're an insider, you're a reporter, you have sources, you have to talk to some people possibly about uncomfortable things, possibly stuff they don't really want to talk about. Does the fact that it seems like there was a bunch of willing participants to divulge these types of facts and information, does that say anything to you, or is that just people talking to you and you doing your job? You know what I'm getting at?
I know what you're getting at. I think it says something. I mean, look, you guys are watching the games. We all know how hard this season's been on the ice, how this is not what the Leafs had planned. But I think off the ice, what I've learned in going through a lot of these discussions and conversations is that it was just as difficult, if not more. And for people that have worked for the Leafs, there's a lot of confusion. I think there's frustration for some, probably a little bit of anger. And there's a lot of changes happening, right? 2 years ago, the Leafs were sitting there with Brendan Shanahan as the president, Brad Treliving as the general manager. They had another good regular season. They went and had that series against Boston. They lost in Game 7. They come back last year. They win the division. Things were kind of going along smoothly if you worked under those people, if that was your work environment. And Keith Pelly has got increasingly more involved, and obviously last May made the decision not to bring Shanahan back. And that's caused – there's a trickle-down effect to that. I think it put a lot more on Brad Treliving's plate, which was difficult for him to manage. I'm sure people around him felt that strain. I think there's some confusion at times. They're not spending as much money as they once did in some areas. I think some people look over their shoulder and they're like, what's happening here? So, I would just say that the organization's gone through a transition period that it's still going through, very much going through, as they look to hire a new head of hockey operations, and we'll see what happens after that point. So it's just been a hard year. That's my takeaway. And I think people maybe were more willing to talk about some of these subjects because of how difficult it's been and how frustrated the whole group is. I mean, I can tell you, being around the Leafs the last few weeks, these guys just can't wait to get through tonight's game, get through, locker clean out in the meetings they have, and get into the offseason, because this has just been a real slog.
So, CJ, you helped contribute to the article with James and with Jonas. I mean, when you look at it, what was the most reading it, there's so many things that jump off the page. You doing your due diligence behind the scenes, is there anything that jumps off the page even more for you? I mean, it started with the Stolar's comments. It's Matthews' injury. It's Keith Pelly in the war room. All of these things. Like, what is I wouldn't say the craziest. What's the most unique thing out of this article that kind of took you by surprise out of all of it?
For me, it's the weight of everything, Noodles. Like, when you add it all together, this was a crazy season. And I don't just mean because the Leafs are in the draft lottery and some of us expected them to be back in the playoffs. I mean, you add together between some of the injury situations, think of like silly stuff, but like William Nylander giving the camera the finger, Craig Berube having the barbell or whatever fall on his head. Like, it's just been one of these years around the Leafs. Like, you couldn't even replicate this, just with the sort of range and the strangeness of some of this stuff. And then obviously we were trying to dig into the explanation of why. What were the circumstances kind of maybe behind the curtains that we weren't all seeing? And what it reveals is, I just think, there's some questions there about how streamlined everything was, who's in charge, how it's working. And I don't think that this is beyond salvation or something. Like, I should be clear. Like, I do believe there's a world where this can get cleaned up and where they restructure the front office, and maybe out of kind of all the chaos and, as we called it in the story, dysfunction, that they can get to a better place. But, right now they're not in that place. And a lot of people have worked for this team for a long time that I think are just, they don't know if they're going to be back. They don't know where they stand in this. I think some of them, felt maybe cut out at certain points this year with the way decisions were being made. It really was a tough season. And so to me, it's the bulk of everything, Noodles. It's just like so much stuff happened, very little of it productive, very little of it positive. And ultimately, I do think it played a hand in what we saw on the ice and how few wins the Leafs registered.
CJ, just to follow up on that, like, I think everybody has hope. Leafs Nation has a hope that this can turn around, restructuring, whatever. Like, after it's done, like, how heavily involved do you think Keith Pelly should be in this hockey team once people are in place to run the hockey team? Do you think he takes a step back and says, have at it, we'll check in once in a while, or what do you think goes on?
Well, he's the CEO. And so for me, the CEO doesn't need to worry about what's happening on the base ground. I mean, let's give everyone some grace here. Let's imagine he gets it right. He makes some great hires. The front office gets to a better place. I think it would be Keith Pelly's own wish to not be part of that equation. I mean, obviously, if there's a big trade, if there's a big financial transaction, I would assume that kind of thing goes through him and to ownership in terms of getting a sign-off, just as it does with every other team. I mean, if you're signing a $100 million contract, you're not doing that. No GM is doing that, on his or her, own doing. You have to, run that by someone up the chain. But I think ideally, we're not going to be seeing or hearing from Keith Pelly as time goes along. But, after Brendan Shanahan was taken out of the picture, he's more part of things. He said himself last May, I'm going to work closer with Brad Treliving and Craig Berube. He obviously at that time expressed a lot of confidence in their ability to do the job. He's in this case sort of intentionally stepped into this world, and I don't think he wants to remain there too long. I think ideally they're building a front office that's making good decisions. The team moves in a positive direction. And then he's showing up and having, occasional meetings, going to some games, shaking hands, but he's not going to be front and center and talked about on this show every day as he is right now.
With all the info that you gathered, and you've seen a couple of his pressers and the firings, like, I know what grade I'm giving him, but what grade would you give this guy just from what you've seen from him taking over and all that's transpired?
I mean, I'm a soft marker maybe. I'm giving him an incomplete. Like, he hasn't turned in the assignment yet, right? Like, he's done the first part of the job.
The question was thus far. It's just thus far.
Well, I guess, like, how could you get, it would be a fail. Like, there's no way around it.
Yeah.
He took over. They were in this playoff streak. They did have stability. It wasn't perfect. Obviously, lots of things we remember from the end of the Shanahan years that we criticized or questioned. But, they were in a functional spot. He has brought about change, and so far it's been disruptive, and it hasn't been reflective in more positive things happening on the ice or around the front office. Now, this is why it's such a critical time for him to get things right now, because this is the next part of his job is, I'm not going to say this was the teardown, but obviously he's evaluating it and he feels like there's a lot of areas they need to strengthen. I would prefer not to grade him on the press conference, some of the quotes, all those things. I would rather grade him on the decisions he makes. And, I think we have to start with what this front office looks like from this point on and if they can get out of this mess, because they're in a mess right now. I mean, I think we all know that and understand that, but this organization, after a long period of having banking on playoff dates every spring, like, we don't know when the next playoff game is going to be around here. We know it's not going to be next week when it's getting going everywhere else, but it could be some time if they don't get this right. And so far it's been I would say a rough start for Keith Pelly, but he's got a chance now to turn that around and maybe get a little better mark from teacher O'Dog.
Where do you think 34 sits in all of this?
I mean, he's probably feeling it. I'm curious to see not so much what he says tomorrow, guys, when he speaks at locker cleanout. It's like how he says it. What's the body language? What's the vibe? Like, what kind of, what is he giving off in terms of his attitude and how he comes across? I mean, I'm steadfast in this. I know there's a lot of people out there that like to sort of have doomsday takes on Austin Matthews. It's always been my understanding he loves playing here. The guy signed early every time he's had a chance. I think he's very comfortable living in Toronto. I think he loves being the man on the Maple Leafs. I think it's an honor for him to be the captain of the team. He wants a chance to be part of a winner. It's been, pretty deep through his career. And, he hasn't gotten beyond the second round, just as none of his teammates here have in Toronto. And so, I think he would, all things being equal, who wants to move? Who wants to take that chance? I think he really would stick around here, despite all the kind of doomsday talk you hear. But there's a key part of this. If this is going to be some long rebuild, like if that is the plan, I don't see that working for him. I can't imagine it works for William Nylander, some of the other veterans on this roster. So to me, Matthews is probably feeling the weight of the season, how it's just been a tough year, as I mentioned. But, the most important questions are to come, what those conversations look like as he looks forward, because, I think he wants to be here, but they have to give him a reason.
Chris Johnston with us. He's got a 4,000-word piece in The Athletic alongside Jonas Siegel and James Myrtle, which we highly encourage you to check out. It details the rise and fall, I suppose, of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 2025-2026 season. Let's go back to the trade deadline for a second, Chris. And you guys were writing about Matthew Knies and just how much discussion there was, because that's kind of the big mystery of the deadline, right? I mean, we know Nick Waugh gets traded, Lawton gets traded, Bobby McMahon, but all the rumors around Knies continue to kind of be untold. You guys detailed that a little bit. What can you tell us about how close it really was, and what could that mean for the future of Matthew Knies in Toronto?
My understanding is the Leafs recognized, obviously, they don't have a lot of prospects. They don't have young players coming along. I mean, we saw Easton Cowan join the team this year, but there's not a lot in the pipeline, and we understand why that is. And so I think as they looked at kind of their roster and where opportunities might lay, Matthew Knies signed to the contract he is, with the style of player that he is, the fact he has no trade protection at all at this stage of that deal. They were willing to listen on him in the event that they could hit a grand slam. And, from what I've been told, they only saw, a handful, 4 or 5 teams around the league that had the kind of pieces that they would covet in a deal and they thought would make that deal. I think they engaged to a degree with those teams. It sounds like, went somewhere beyond an initial conversation with both Montreal and Buffalo. It's not to say anything was done. Like, obviously, if they got the offer they thought it would take, the deal would have been made. And so I think that's really what it was, is they were selling the guys on expiring deals. Obviously, Lawton and McMahon get moved. They shopped Oliver Ekman-Larsson around, and they kept them out of a couple games before the deadline. But those were always going to be, get what you can. But I think they were trying to be creative to see if they could really get some kind of game-changing return. And I was told that they had offers with like 5 or 6 pieces in them, but it wasn't the right set of pieces. It wasn't the sort of things that they would need to make that happen. And that's why it didn't happen. And to preempt what I think will be your next question, what's interesting about all this is there's no sense this will happen again, right? I mean, they're going to make a change in the front office. I don't know what the next person, how they view that. I don't know if this was just a moment in time where they were trying to, see if they could catch lightning in the bottle, and they didn't. And so, Matthew Nyes, in my eyes, is still part of the core of this team, even while we're having kind of this conversation about his name being out there in March.
We got 30 seconds here, CJ. Do you think Craig Berube is still the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs 24 hours from now, or could it be a quick decision tomorrow morning before locker room cleanout, after locker room cleanout? How do you think this all plays out?
I expect him to be the coach tomorrow. I mean, from what I've been told, he's going to conduct his own set of exit meetings with the players. There's no sense here that anything is imminent in terms of a decision on him. He's got 2 years on his deal. There's major money owed still to Craig Berube, and I think they're going to put off any decision on the coaching staff until they have a better sense of what the front office looks like.
Awesome stuff, man. Great work. You, Jonas, and Myrtle, you guys did awesome stuff there. Everyone loves the article. Very detailed, and I'm looking forward to reading your next opus. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
That's Chris Johnston, hockey insider. Man, crazy stuff. Berube, though, do you think there's any world in which he's coaching the team next year, regardless of who's in charge?
Let me ask you this. You have no idea. We just mentioned the psyche of Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
We have no idea who the next manager is. And if he comes in and says, I'm sorry, I'm going down to the studs and I'm going to move some players out and I'm going to have a hardworking, straight line team. Craig Berube, it might be younger. Maybe Craig Berube's my boss. I don't know. I doubt that happens. But what I'm saying is, I agree. You don't fire Craig Berube. I think the new person fires him and says, I'm bringing in my own people. If that's the case, then if Doug Armstrong's a new person, he's got a long history with Craig Berube. That's the other thing.
That's true.
So,
he did fire Craig Berube, though, but that is true. Man, a lot to get to with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Bottom line is, AK, when you look at Craig Berube's face watching these guys a lot of nights.
Oh, I agree.
It's Rick Bowness face.
I can't believe he hasn't gone Rick Bowness this year. I'm stunned at how calm he's been.
They asked him about it.
I know.
And he was like, yeah, it's fair. I could see. I guarantee you in probably a candid moment, he'd probably be like, I would have loved to do that. I probably should have done that.
Well, he's still got one more opportunity. Maybe tonight. Who knows? Maybe he lets it fire tonight like Rick Bowness did last night. Joe Bowen coming up in about 15 minutes. His final Maple Leafs broadcast after 44 years is tonight on TSN 1050. Some rumors around the LIV Golf Tour, which we'll get to on the other side. And the Toronto Blue Jays win last night, but it wasn't without another Jeff Hoffman implosion. We'll get to that in hour number 2.
Rookie. All new Mondays on CTV. Stream next day on Crave.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continues. Joe Bowen in about 10 minutes, his final broadcast as the voice of the Maple Leafs after 44 years tonight on TSN 1050. Really looking forward to that conversation. Really looking forward to what hopefully is coming on Thursday as we welcome you back to the show. I'm Aaron Korolnik in for Brian Hayes. Sounds like LIV Golf is done. And there's reporting out of the UK that the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund is on the verge of cutting its financial support for LIV. Reportedly, they've spent $5 billion on LIV and have gotten zero out of it.
And
unbelievably pathetic.
AK, that was the big talk about the league and the financial backing of it, where it was like, these guys have so much money, they do not care how much gets pissed away. Well, let me tell you something. Somebody always cares when, like, I guess the costs that were just going out year after year and the losses were just incredible. And it was just a crazy idea. And to think that it's any kind of goofy league, it's going to have some support at the beginning or some type of interest. But ultimately, the thing turned into a joke. And it would not shock me if it shut down. The biggest question is what happens to the guys, especially the star players. Even more interesting will be kind of the middle guys like that are like, oh, where the hell am I going to play? I don't have $5 million floating around to pay the fine for the PGA Tour or whatever the situation is. Where are they going to play golf?
Well, Patrick Reed is going to have to take a year off from his last LIV event, right? So he's not currently on LIV. He's done. He's coming back, I think, in August. But I think that's probably what will happen. It's kind of a one-year suspension. But if I'm the PGA Tour, Bryson, Rahm, welcome back. Guess Tyrrell Hatton, you'll take him too. Everybody else, what, you want Dustin Johnson?
Yes, I do want Dustin Johnson. I would literally have a double standard. It sounds crazy, but I would be like, top end guys that people want to see, come on back and you can play golf. You other guys, you're gonna have to figure your life out.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah. You wanted to jump ship and play golf over there, and you have no kind of world ranking, no status. You just got to start from scratch and go find a place to play.
That's going to be really interesting to see how they handle Bryson and Rahm in particular. I guess Cam Smith.
They could just they'll build something in stupid, not stupid, but something with
a double
merit.
standard.
Like, they'll say, hey, if you won a major, you can kind of, or if you've been at this position on the world ranking, we'll find a way to get you back. Excuse me. And if not, just good luck to you.
Well, we'll keep you updated on that. It sounds like news continues to percolate on the subject of LIV and its potential demise. Hour 2 coming up. Joe Bowen and Steve Phillips, part of the equation here on Overdrive. You're watching and listening on TSN 1050 and TSN 4.
blueprint for football greatness. Now it's time for the next generation to show the world what they're made of.
We're the first pick in the NFL Draft.
The NFL Draft on TSN and TSN Plus. This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Second hour of OverDrive, Wednesday afternoon here on TSN 4, TSN 1050, and TSN's YouTube channel. I'm Aaron Korolnik in for Brian Hayes with Jeff O'Neill, Jamie, Noodles, McLennan. Big night tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Win or lose, who cares, really? It's game 82. I'm sure everyone just wants to get off the ice, not injured. But Joe Bowen up in the broadcast booth. This game is of extreme significance. His final broadcast after 44 years. He will join us in about 5 minutes. But just think about Bonesy, how he transcends every era of Maple Leafs hockey over the last 44 years, from Borje Salming to Wendell to Dougie to Mats, Phil Kessel, Austin Matthews. He's seen it all, and it all ends tonight. It's an unbelievable run, and he should be incredibly proud of everything he's accomplished. One of the true GOATs in broadcasting.
Truly is a GOAT. I talked about, born into the religion of being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and a lot of people I know that are younger than me are just involved with any kind of Leafs Nation in any capacity. They're connected to the name Joe Bowen. And I know Joe probably thinks this, but it would have been so amazing. There's how many people have you guys talked to that said, just once I want to see one cup? You don't think Bonesy, just to say they won the Stanley Cup, to hear that call, and to have that call as a part of the history of the team, and Joe himself, it just would have been incredible. And it's disappointing, obviously, that it never happened.
Yeah, I mean, he did have great moments, and I'm sure that's what he'll highlight on, but I'm sure his dream would have been to call – a Stanley Cup final, a Stanley Cup winner, that type of stuff, as every broadcaster, dreams. Like I say, when you think of the fabric of the Toronto Maple Leafs, his name is synonymous with it because he's just been a mainstay, and that's where there would be a new chapter. Somebody who, takes over in his job. It's big shoes to fill, but they're not going to be Joe Bowen. They're going to have to carve their own path. And was it 44 years?
Yeah, 44 years.
44 years.
A long time,
It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime that he spent with the organization. And, he's going to be an ambassador to the team. He always will be. But, he hopes that better days ahead. The other day, even on Prime, I was watching the interview. He bit his tongue a few times because he probably was like, yeah, he said, I'd like to see a win. I'd like to see that in my lifetime. And, I do believe he believes it, and I hope it comes true. But he's seen a lot of great days and a lot of dark days for this organization.
Yeah, it's a real shame that this season has gone down the toilet the way that it has, because you're right, Noodles. I mean, the fact that Joe never got the opportunity to call a Stanley Cup final game at all. I mean, forget winning a Stanley Cup, just getting there. For Bonesy. How many conference finals? I know, O-Dog, you kind of ruined Bonesy back in 2002 in the Maple Leafs with Marty Gelinas back then. Who knows? Maybe it could be very different. But it's just an incredible run, and he will go down as one of the greatest broadcasters in the history of this city, in the history of this country, without a doubt, a true Hall of Famer. And, again, he's going to join us momentarily. And Dennis Hildeby starting tonight for the Maple Leafs against James Reimer. James Reimer starting in Bonesy's final game. It makes a lot of sense. It's poetic.
I think we're all the same, with the exception of some nights that are just complete write-offs where it's like, we're watching this thing. So, Jamie, you have invested interest because you keep tabs and you basically are associated with the Ottawa Senators. But I just don't know what's in store tonight.
Well, there's one thing. It's listening to Bonesy. That's the only thing people should be focusing on tonight. And you could do it on TSN 1050. Joining us now on the Maple Toyota hotline, it's the man of the hour. Look at that. Beautiful tie. Joe Bowen joining us here on OverDrive. Joe, how are we feeling tonight?
Good, guys. Emotional. It's going to be an interesting night. But It'll be fun, and it'll be something that obviously I'll remember for the rest of my life for sure.
Bones, before we get into the memories and how special you are and all of my amazing goals that you called, I have to ask you one question. How much of the picture that you tweeted last night of that gift is still available? Because I know the answer. If those boys of yours were around, the answer is probably nothing.
Well, Sean is here, so we did it. It's there's still enough for a final go round, but anyway, and you know what, O-Dog, I have to tell you this. A lot of people have asked me about who was my favorite Leaf of all time. And I've had to think long and hard about this, and I've, called over 700 guys' names, and there's obviously some that are there. But O-Dog, you were within 400. You were right there.
Out of all the players that you called, O-Dog was one of them. That's what you're saying.
He certainly was. Absolutely, Noodles.
That means a lot to me, pal. You almost made me tear up there, but then you got me at the end, and I hate your guts for saying that now.
So I got one for you, Bones. Did you ever catch yourself, is there one team that you thought, this is the team that could win it all? Over the last either 10, over the 40 years, was there one team in particular, one year where you were like, this is the team that's going to get it done?
The team that Jeff knocked out, they'd gone through all of those injuries and everything else, and yet they were right there. Obviously, going through the 80s when there was absolutely no hope, and then to have Cliff Fletcher arrive on the scene and make all of those deals and the Gilmore trade, and then to be that close to a blown call to getting to the final. And I don't know what would have been left in the tank for those guys. 21 games and 42 nights. But I know that team probably exhibited more heart than any organization that I've ever seen. And they were running on fumes, but there was still stuff in the tank. It would have been a whale of a series. So I would think those two were probably the teams that I thought had the best shot at it. But it doesn't happen, and that's the world of sports. And if you're a sports fan, you're going to be more disappointed than you are exhilarated, because it just doesn't go around. And I keep talking about the Boston Red Sox 84-year drought and the Chicago Cubs 104-year drought. You have to take it with what it is, but it is still a difficult time to get through something like that. But those two teams, I think, Noodles.
Bones, can you take us through your journey in broadcasting and on the radio and television? I just know playing the game, one day you're 27 years old or 25 and you're like, I'm in the NHL, and you almost get this feeling like this is never going to end. And then one day you wake up and I'm retired in Florida, and I'm like, God, that went by so fast. So there must have been a place in time where you were like, in your prime, and you were like, I got the greatest gig going. People love me. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, man, maybe the end is near. Just like that, kind of how quick that process was.
Well, last year, I even with the team playing as well as it did a year ago, and obviously the disappointment and everything, but I knew in my heart of hearts last year that this should be it. I knew I was slipping. I knew I wasn't as energetic about it, maybe to some extent, but I didn't want to have someone come and tap me on the shoulder and say enough's enough. So. Players sometimes don't get to go off on their own terms. I mean, we're looking at Alex Ovechkin now, and somebody asking him what's he going to do or whatever, and I haven't decided yet. Well, he's going to go off on his own terms. But most players, they get the word, they get the tap, and it's a tough situation for them to understand that at a very young age, they're in a career decision. They're moving in a different direction. And to find out what they're going to do with the rest of their life. They may have made a boatload of money and everything else, but you have to have something that you enjoy, that you love, to go ahead and do and be a part of your life from that point on. So I've been very fortunate. I've 44 years here, 3 in Halifax and 7 more in Sudbury with the Wolves. Has been, just an outstanding run. And the last real job I had, guys, was 5,000 feet underground at Inco, hard rock mining, trying to get through university. I decided that probably wasn't a good idea to make that a career, and we've gone on and had a lot of fun doing something else.
Well, I think everybody who's a Maple Leaf fan is thankful that was not the career path you chose. That is for sure. Joe Bowen's with us here on OverDrive. Tonight marks his final broadcast after 44 incredible years calling Toronto Maple Leafs games. Joe, how does your preparation for your final game tonight compare to your preparation for your first game 44 years ago?
Well, the internet helps. I don't have to go and grab paper from everybody and go. The pregame skates were always kind of a complete waste of time, other than having to go and pick up the information that you were going to need. So a lot of that has changed, obviously. I think you realize you can over prepare and you end up spending an awful lot of time getting stuff that you're never going to get on the air unless, Jeff O'Neill breaks 5 panes of glass with his slap shot. So to that extent, I think it's just something that you learn what you really require. Working with people like Ralphie and everything else, you realize that you're going to lean on them an awful lot more and enjoy what they bring to the table and let them use their creativity and their abilities and their humor and everything else to be a part of it. So I think that it's changed, but I think you develop and you diversify yourself a little bit as to how you want to do the games and whatnot. But it's still an enjoyable time. We have a lot of fun doing it, and I'm going to miss the people. I'll miss that most of all. And but as I said the last time, I said I'm still going to go to the games. The difference will be I'll be about 3 deep into the Crown and Diets before they drop the first puck.
As you should.
Which isn't a bad thing. Anything, have you thought about, after retirement, we'll call it, are you going to go to some Green Bay games? Are you going to do some things you haven't been able to do because you've been so tied up during the hockey season?
Well, Noodles, I want to be very much involved with the Maple Leaf alumni. The proudest moment that I've had in my career is when I was called into their annual meeting and told that they had voted that I was an honorary member. And that is the proudest thing that I have. I want to be involved with the guys going out and doing their charitable events, their games and whatnot, stick a microphone in my mouth and maybe have some fun at it. I want to do some things, hopefully with the Leafs as an ambassador to do other things of that nature like that. But I'll pick and choose then when I can go away and do stuff. And you're right. We're going to go down to see Notre Dame play Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. We're going to make sure we go to see the Fighting Irish kick the tar out of Miami and drag them up in the middle of the winter to South Bend. And some things like that you haven't been able to do, and maybe a couple of trips to warm weather climate every once in a while in January, whatever. But yeah, it'll be something that at least it'll be some spare time. And I got 3 young grandkids now that I want to be a lot more involved in their lives too, since I'm going to be around a lot more.
Joe Bowen with us again. His final broadcast tonight on TSN 1050. Mute your TVs. Don't even turn them on. Just sit there old school and listen on your couch to Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph do their thing on TSN 1050. It was an emotional night for you on Monday, the final home game of your broadcasting career. And, of course, the players all saluting you after the game and you doing the whole the heart sign to the crowd. It was a really cool moment. Your family was in the box. I mean, what was that experience like for you personally?
Well, there wasn't a dry eye in the joint, I know that, and I probably led the parade of that, but it's very special. I'm blessed with 4 wonderful sons, and they are an absolute delight. I am so proud of them all. They've all taken different paths, and as far as their careers are concerned, having my grandkids up there at the same time was tremendous. The ovation from the fans was, really touching. And I know that I'll have probably as much difficulty tonight going through a prepared little thing that I want to do at the end of the game to thank so many people that have been integral in my career and everything else. But that was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, and it will never be forgot, that's for sure.
Well, congratulations on an unbelievable run. You a true icon, a legend in this industry. We can't thank you enough for all your amazing work over the years. Looking forward to tonight, and enjoy yourself, because I'm sure it'll be a very special night in Ottawa.
Yeah, and I know, guys, you're talking about the ashes, but things will rise from the ashes again, and things will improve. Be a little optimistic at times. Everything will get turned around. I'm very confident.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Thank you so much, Bonesy. Have a great call tonight.
Thanks, Bonesy.
You bet.
Thanks, Bonesy.
That's Joe Bowen joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Red Tag Days are here. Check out the Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Tundra pickup trucks, both available as hybrids. Visit Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland in the Maple Auto Mall. So we know tonight will be Bonesy's final game calling Maple Leaf games. How many Maple Leafs who are playing tonight, whether it be, I guess, Craig Berube on the bench, I don't know, Dennis Hill to be in net, is that a guy who could be traded over the course of the offseason? I mean, there could be a lot of turnover. I expect there to be a lot of turnover from the roster they're putting out there tonight versus what they're going to ice in Game 1 next year.
I think there's a few guys that control their own destiny. Everything else for the new person that comes in has to be on the table. Don't you think? We talked about it. There may be, even on Stanley Cup winners or team that goes deep into the playoffs, there's always 6, 8, 10 new players out of a roster of 23. I can't imagine what it'd look like next year, but I would be shocked if there wasn't the 10-pack of new players. And that's, but I sent that tweet to you. There was Calle Yarncroke lasted 4 years. There's a guy
Jamie,
like.
You know what I can't even contemplate or make decisions like our fantasy decisions or whatever we do on this show. I can't even talk player personnel. Jamie has told me a lot of times over our years working together, he'd be like, "Oh, Doug, just sleep on it and make a decision tomorrow."
Yeah.
Like maybe 15 times, maybe more. He's told me that because I'll call him with something ridiculous and he'll say, "Take your time, just sleep on it." And then I'll wake up in the morning and I'm like, Jamie was right, because I'm in a totally different mind frame right now. I need a 2-week to step away
breathe,
and then look at it on paper and make an educated decision. Like I need to sleep on it with what I would do to this roster for 2 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks. Because honestly, every time I watch them play or I look at it on a board that Billy Dodson puts on the Leaf games, I just look at it and I'm like, there would not be a lot left of this but you can't do it. Like we talked about with Columbus and Detroit. It's like people talk about this drastic change for next year. I don't think it's possible. I really don't. Like not only do you have to get 6 to 8 like really good NHL player, can't do it. A, you don't have the assets. B, other teams aren't just saying, "Oh, the Maple Leafs, you guys need to be good next year? Why don't you take this guy off our hands? He's a 30-goal scorer. He's a power forward. He's a great defenseman. He's a shutdown D. He's a stellar goaltender. We want you guys to have him." It just doesn't work like that.
No, there's
and you got to make guys disappear. That's not exactly easy either.
I think there is. You're right. There is a decompress after this, because right now I think fans are watching the game and it's unlikable. So somebody that you probably should like or feel like would be a good asset next year, like, he's associated with what you're watching right now. And I think what you have to do is take a step back when the dust settles and go, can that player X help my team next year? Not what we saw last year. And that comes from Michelli to Domi to McCabe, all these players that you think, okay, good players, but are they going to fit into what you're trying to build next year, not what you've seen this year? That's what you got to do.
One thing I'm really interested in is free agency for the Toronto Maple Leafs and how they handle that. And I suppose it depends on who's in charge making these calls, but there are two guys, probably the top 2 free agents, one on the back end and Darren Radish, who's had 20-plus goals for Tampa, 30-year-old who's had a career year. What could possibly go wrong in signing him to a massive long-term deal? And Alex Tuck with Buffalo, and maybe they keep him, maybe they don't, but he's probably looking at 10 and a half a year. Again, he's 30 plus. Someone's going to give him that.
He's probably going to say, there's a guy out in L.A. that his name's Kempe, whatever that guy makes, I'm making that. And you know what? There's time gone by, so it might be more.
That's exactly it. But you have to wonder for the Leafs. And again, if we assume, and based on what Keith Pelly has said, they're going to try to be good next year, would the easiest path just to be paying one of those guys what could very well be
you think
an overpay?
Alex Tuch is going to solve this team's problem?
No, I don't. I don't think he's going to solve it, but I think he would make them better, and they could at least pitch it to the fan base. Well, look at what we got. We've got Alex Tuch. We've got Chris Tanev coming back. We've got a healthy Austin Matthews coming back.
I don't understand that comment at all. Like the idea of that's already happened in this organization so many times where it's like, you want to show the fan base. What do you want to try to do? Trick the fan base for 20 games and win some games, much like the Dion and Phil era, where actually anybody that knew what the hell they were talking about knew that thing was going to collapse? Like, why would you want to even entertain the idea of doing that?
Well, it's because that's
not even
the
real.
direction they're going to go in. We just know that's Pelly's directive for the new person coming in.
I don't think anybody knows what direction. Some guy might walk in here and say, not a chance in hell I'm operating like this.
Is that guy getting the job then, if that's his perspective?
Maybe not, but good on the guy, because I told you how I would operate it. I would sit the guy down and I would play stupid and say, we got to keep this, we got to make this team better and we got to compete. And if the guy said, I'll do it for you, we'll start in September, I'd say, get the hell out of my office because you have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
And keep in mind, guys, again, I believe Austin Matthews wants to be a part of the solution here, but we don't know. We don't know what he's thinking right now about his future, and not his future next season, but a long-term deal. Like, he's going to be very soon in that stratosphere of Quinn Hughes. Connor McDavid signed a 2-year extension. You got to look at all of that. If Austin Matthews wants to stay, then you say, okay, we're going to build around him. If he says, hey, I'm not sure, I need to see what the next 6 months looks like. 20,
wouldn't that be what you would do if you were Austin Matthews, though? After what we just saw,
100%. I agree. But keep in mind, Austin Matthews doesn't manage the team. He's an asset. So the new manager has to take a look at it and says, this guy's part of the solution, or if he think he might become a problem. And what I mean problem is if he does the Quinn Hughes or the Matthew Tkachuk or you name it, there's other guys that have done that. You got to get ahead of that. You need to know what's coming, what's around the corner. And he's not going to tell you tomorrow. But you might get an inkling this summer after the dust settles. You go out and meet him face-to-face and say, where's your head at? This is what I'm planning to do with you, or if you decide you're going to move on, then we have to do plan B, plan C, plan E. And Morgan Riley comes into that conversation.
For sure.
88, William Nylander. I know he signed a long-term deal, but he's worth a lot too on the marketplace. So I look at it. I think there's big decisions to be made. That's why I keep coming back. Austin Matthews controls a lot of that narrative, but the new person, what he's selling to Keith Pelly is, yes, I've got vision X, Y, or Z, and it might be up to the stars, because he could say, oh, I'm going to rebuild, and Austin Matthews is going to be the centerpiece, and Austin Matthews' agent, Judd, calls and goes, he wants out. Okay, so what do? You pivot. The guy's got the job already. So I think you've got to be fluid with how you're going to manage things based on how some of the things present themselves in front of you.
And if there's anything we've learned, I think you're spot on, Noodles. And if there's anything we've learned from that article that CJ, Jonas, and Myrtle came out, we know the influence of AI and data. Of course, this show is data-driven as well. It just seems almost unfathomable that a guy like Doug Armstrong or Mark Bergevin, or I don't know, like a hardcore hockey guy would be their pick for the head of hockey operations. It seems like it's almost a done deal, that it's got to be some analytics genius, and that's going to be the path that they go down. Whether we like it or not, that seems that's the path they're going to go down.
Again, we've done the analytics thing, and I bet you if you ask Kyle and talk to him now, he's grown a lot and views things differently, and he might not have the same value system as far as looking at a hockey team. Like, Evgeny Malgin might not be on his roster again for the second time. He might not pull stunts like that because he's been around. There's maturity involved. And a guy like Brazeau is maybe how he understands or does things a little bit differently now. But we did the analytics thing for a long time. They won one playoff round. Why on earth would anybody want to circle back and have that the main principle philosophy moving forward? Like, what are we even talking about here? It's like it's been described before. All of this stuff, the number stuff, one great thing I've ever read about it, it's like a lamppost when you're hammered on the street. It can kind of hold you up, and it's something to lean on, but it's not there all the time. Right?
That's deep, man. That's an unbelievable analogy.
It is. It's a great analysis.
So why are we I can't even believe this nonsense. They got some guy that nobody even knows, who never heard of this guy, Keith Pelly's right-hand man, talking about equations to get, returns back on draft picks. What are we doing here? This is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they should never be in this position where people are writing articles like this and people are being charged to skate around with a flag, $1,000, and getting rid of dad's trips and making the American League team take a bus when they don't need to. It's nonsense. I just wish it was run like a traditional organization where there's an owner that's desperate to win and he'll do anything to win, and that's all that matters. All these other calculations are about money. It's so stupid. It doesn't make sense to me. I find it embarrassing.
Well, the other thing, too, is what is not lost in all of this, if you look at their staff alone, they have a very large analytics side already. If Metcalf, Brandon Pridham, they all have their numbers driven anyway. So, that's the one thing. Kyle Dubas had built up a staff. They had a massive, I don't know the exact number, but I think it was like 18 people that worked in their data department. Okay, I think Kyle took some of them. But a lot of them still remained here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So my point being is, Keith Pelly, they've been surrounded by numbers the whole time. Again, I've always believed it's a piece of the pie, not the pie. So the challenge is you need the right – if you're going to bring in two people, no problem. One could be data-driven. The other person has to be, able to manage the day-to-day relationships. That's the difference. A manager has to manage the parents, the athlete's spouse. There's so many things that come with the package of a player, the agent, everything. And a lot of that is not in a pie chart. It's like any CEO of a company. It's about the relationships you have. So I think it's not just one person. It's going to be multiple people that are going to come in and help this organization.
Yeah, all that stuff you just talked about, Jamie, with I don't know. It's like there's the teams and organizations are so desperate to have talented players, especially in Canadian markets and in non-traditional markets. If you're not the who's who, whether it be the New York Rangers or the LA Kings or Vegas Golden Knights or whoever the markets may be, but it's just like you have to do so much ass kissing and everybody's got to be happy. I don't know. I just have this old school kind of belief where it's like it's an honor to play in the league. And obviously you get to a point and you got to look out for number one. You got to take care of your family because at the end of the day, you are a piece of meat. They could turn around, wake up one morning and say, you're gone. We want somebody better. And that's just the way it goes. Yeah. But just the idea of having to have your ass kissed the whole tenure, it's turned into the Toronto GTHL, junior OHL hockey. It's like, this is the NHL. I thought you just showed up and you played your ass off and you got paid well to do it. And I don't know. You just see stuff. It's mind-boggling.
Analytics are a lamppost when you're hammered. That is a very wise word. I love that.
You can lean on it once in a while, but it's not there forever.
But it's not there forever.
If it's there forever, you got a drinking problem.
You definitely do. Yeah. A lot of Jays fans have drinking problems whenever Jeff Hoffman comes into the game. Last night would certainly apply as well. They won, but Hoffman had another tough night, and you wonder just how long he is for the closer role. We'll get to that with Steve Phillips on the other side. It's Dylan Cease on the hill for the Jays. Game 2 against the Brewers. We'll tee it up with Steve next.
This isn't just a game. It's a year-long, worldwide obsession.
Oh, man!
And every week, Golf Talk Canada takes you inside the ropes.
Nick Taylor has done it again.
To break down the life-changing,
McIlroy has his masterpiece.
record-breaking performances.
Those 2 rounds are superb.
And the stories that shape the game.
It's about victories. It's about legacy.
Golf Talk Canada. Tuesday nights on TSN. Presented by Picton Investments.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Aaron Karolnik in for Brian, who will be back tomorrow with Jeff O'Neill and Jamie McLennan. Steve Phillips will join us momentarily. Man, that was a sweat last night watching that Jays game.
Holy smoke.
Hoffman is just a roller coaster ride, and he did not perform well. But how about Louis Varland? I mean, Louis Varland's a guy they traded for last year before the deadline. He's been a machine. Remember in the playoffs, he pitched every single night. And then so far this year, he's been just a beast. And a lot of people are wondering, should Louis Varland be their closer as opposed to Jeff Hoffman, which I don't think is an unreasonable question. Why don't we pose it to our baseball insider, Steve Phillips, this Wednesday evening? Hello, Steve.
Hey, guys. Good to be with you. How's everything? Happy Jackie Robinson Day.
All right. Look at that hoodie. You got any extra of those, Steve, you could send our way?
I could call my people to talk to your people and see what we might be able to work out.
AK, this is a professional show. We don't ask for stuff. That's embarrassing.
My bad. I've never seen anyone do that before.
Hayes would never do that.
I don't know what I was doing. Shame on me. So this Hoffman question, and the Jays win. Just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to be overly negative, but that was a tough one last night. It's been tough for a long time, dating back to Game 7 for Hoffman. What do you think's the solution here? Do they make a change or they continue to ride with him?
Yeah, I think that for the time being, I mean, considering where they are, I think you continue to ride with him, but I think you have to keep an open mind about it. And you know, it's the one area where I think they made a mistake this offseason. I thought they had a great offseason, but you know, they were in on Kyle Tucker, and if that money was available, I would have left Barger in right field and spent that money on Edwin Diaz and brought him in to be the closer. And you still would have had money left over from what you were offering Tucker. I just think that, you know, after last year, bringing Jeff Hoffman back to be the closer and expecting him to get the job done this year, I think there's a spot for him in a bullpen and in a good bullpen. It's just not the ninth inning. You know, you can't have a closer who has 16 decisions in a season. He was 9-7 last year. And so, you know, your closer should be 1-2 or, you know, 3-1 on the season where, you know, he came into a tie game and he ended up getting a win, or maybe he blew a save, but he stayed in and you came back and scored and rallied and you won the game. But I just think that there's way too much contact, way too much risk, too much of the heart of the plate. And I would hate for that to be the thing. You've got a championship caliber team when it was all put together in the beginning, except for the closer's role. And when that's the case, I just think it's short-sighted not to spend the extra dollars to get the closer you want.
Steve, didn't you find in your time as an executive that you just have to get ahead of this, that you can't have Schneids wheeling out there saying, we totally love this guy and we totally believe in him. And we just saw it with Little. Like, it's not working out, and you can't keep lying to everybody. You got to get ahead of it and make a play, because you can't keep watching it, because the position they're in right now, they can't afford to keep throwing him out on the mound.
Yeah, I think that you know, where they are, where they're shorthanded right now, they've got to steal wins when they got them, right? When they have it, they've got to get the win because they're undermanned. And so, you know, they can't afford to have a closer blow a game in a game they should have won. They've got to steal them when they can get them. And, you know, they are in a position where at the trade deadline, they will likely be able to find somebody, but you got to be in it by the trade deadline. And, you know, they can't afford to dig too deep of a hole now while they're waiting to get healthy, that's going to be hard to dig out of later. And, you can make that run. It's like college basketball, right? Who's going to make the run in the third quarter to come back in a game? And you don't want to be in that spot where you're trying to make that comeback, but you don't have a closer and you give back one of those games. So for now, I am wide open to Varland being the closer, wide open to it. Now, I think you give Hoffman another shot at it or two, but I think you have a quick hook with him when he's in trouble. And at some point you transition, and it's not you give up on Hoffman. There's a spot for him. It's just that when it's the ninth inning, if he gives up a run, then it's over. If it's the seventh inning and he keeps it close and he gives up a run, you still got a couple innings to make up some of that ground because he's not locked down right now with the inning that you send him out there for it, where I think Varland's much more predictably a lockdown reliever for his inning.
So, Steve, it's not like the Jays are that far out of it. You're 7-9, and really Tampa Bay, the Yankees, Baltimore, they're not world beaters right now as far as the standings. So do you think if they hold serve, like you say, they kind of trudge along here, they can get healthy and then climb their way in the standings? Do you see a pathway there for this group if they do get healthy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, the reality is that they weren't playing great baseball when they were healthier. And so now that you're undermanned even more, you've got to play an even cleaner brand of baseball to try to hold on and get wins. And so that's the important part of it now. They need to not beat themselves, make other teams beat you in this moment, and take advantage of their mistakes when they make them. I just looked at the standings. I'm writing a column for tomorrow talking about the injuries. On May 27th last year, the Jays were 26-28, 2 games under 500. That's where they are right now. Right now they're just 2 games behind the Rays at the top of it. So they've got to keep it close, keep the top of the division within arm's length, because from that point where they were 26-28, they went 68-40 the rest of the year last year after that. And so they've got better baseball in front of them. They will get healthier by the end of May. They're going to have Springer back. They'll have Barger back. They have a shot at getting Bieber. They'll definitely have your Savage back. Maybe they'll have Barrios back. And so they will get healthier. So in the meantime, steal wins when you can, keep it close, and get ready to make a run when you get healthy.
So, Steve, you just talked about laying out the game plan of kind of stealing wins when you can and just kind of grinding and keeping it together. And it kind of brings, I think anyway, back to Hoffman again. I was going to ask you, what's the most important element of the game in doing so to kind of keep it alive here? But it's probably Hoffman, isn't it?
Well, I think that
or is it starting pitching? Is it offense? Where would you go?
Yeah. I won't put it on. I won't put it on one inning out of my closer, because what I'm hoping is that if you get the offense going, then maybe you give him some margin for error, that it's not a one-run lead that he's holding in the ninth inning. And so if I had to pick, I want both. I want everything. I want to be greedy. But I think the offense needs to get going. And if they do, then I think that, right now, because they're not scoring, they're over-trying on the bases. They're trying to make plays they shouldn't be making. And I think if they build in some offense, some margin for error, they build that confidence level, they won't be caught up in over-trying. And so I believe in pitching and defense. I think starting pitching is important. But I think for this team, the confidence feeds off of the offense more than anything else. And so I would say, give me some more offense, and then I think you're going to see the rest of the game come around.
Steve, how are you so tanned? Don't you live in Detroit?
No, I live in Connecticut, but I just got back.
Right, from Detroit.
I was just down for
you look like you're cooking in the Florida sun every day. It's unbelievable.
So here's the thing. I was just back from Florida. I was down for the Artemis space launch as my fiance is in charge of the life systems for the space shuttle. And so I was down there after the launch. We hung out in Florida for a few days. So, yeah, it was great.
Makes sense. You look incredible, man. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for doing this. Great to have you on the show.
Okay, guys, thanks.
All right, that's Steve Phillips. I just kept on staring at Steve. I'm like,
hung out at the launch, like getting hit with the fire.
Unreal. Like, the hair looks great. The beard, the tan.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, he looks amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know. He's not as concerned about the Jays as us. I mean, I still feel if they can get healthy, they could do some damage, but they're just not healthy, and I don't know if they're
Jamie,
gonna be...
it's just the magnitude of it. It's like we're not talking getting a couple key guys back. They got so many important pieces out right now, and
it's concerning.
It's the big leagues. Nobody cares. Everyone's got to deal with it, and I think great teams, they really do find a way to scrap and claw and just dig out wins, and that's what they got to figure out how to do. Guys got to step up. Pitching's got to step up. And they got to figure out a way. Or like baseball, man. If you get a month into the season and that number behind is so big, it's like your season's screwed.
For sure. But they do have you Savage. Looks like he could come back maybe as early as next week, which is good news. Jose Barrios as well. And I just don't think anyone wants to see Patrick Corbin starting games, even Max Scherzer right now. You'd rather have those guys that are a lot more reliable and probably have higher upside as well. So that's coming in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, they need to make do with what they have. And that's Dylan Cease tonight against Milwaukee, so we'll see how that goes just after 7:40. OverDrive PGA picks on the other side. Had a long conference call with Brian Hayes this afternoon. I'm going to represent Brian with picks on the other side, plus our best bets powered by FanDuel as we wind down here on the Wednesday afternoon edition of OverDrive.
R.J. Decker, Tuesday on CTV. Stream next day on Crave. All new Scrubs, tonight, 7:30, 10 Central on CTV, and stream tomorrow on Crave.
Don't sweat the technique.
All right, so it's time for the OverDrive PGA picks, which are brought to you by TaylorMade. Feel the straight distance, feel the forgiveness, and feel the confidence as you step into every shot. Learn more about the new QI Max irons at TaylorMadeGolf.ca. It was the 15-year anniversary of the launch of TSN 1050 on Monday, and never really thought that Brian Hayes would be a Peter Millar model at any point in time over the course of this radio station's history, but that is very much what is happening.
Now.
He looks sensational in the Peter Millar swag, and he's also a golf influencer as well with TaylorMade. So this guy has grown a lot over 15 years, no doubt, and it's great to see. And Brian and I were actually talking last night, as I mentioned in the previous segment, about the PGA picks, and we have a behemoth of a team that we are lining up to select. So, Brian did say that he is demanding the first pick this week at the RBC Heritage down at Harbor Town. Are you all right with that?
Well, are you going to did Hazy give you a team, or did he give you, are we going to do a snake?
We can snake it. There's no problem with that. We're on the same wavelength, Brian and I. There's no concerns there. But he does want the first pick, and with the first pick, he's taking Scotty Scheffler.
AK, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. But last week, I handed him the first pick, and he got it wrong, but he's not getting the first pick.
Okay, all right. You could have the first pick. That's fine. That was actually our plan, was to convince you that we wanted the first pick when really we wanted the second and third pick. So go right ahead.
I will be taking Scotty Scheffler, so you are going to have to make that adjustment.
That Saturday, Sunday at Augusta kind of gave you the feel that Scotty Scheffler might be dialed in. Well, another guy who had a really strong showing at Augusta National, Xander Schauffele, will be our second pick overall. And we'll follow that with a guy who's had a lot of success at Harbor Town over the year, Matty Fitz.
Oh,
Matty Fitz.
Matty Fitz is a good pick at Harbor Town. I keep going to this guy, and he kind of keeps letting me down, but he's got so much talent, I just can't really ignore him. Ludwig Oberg.
Well, Brian is a stand-in for Ludwig Oberg on the tee. That's another thing I've heard of late. So
yes, that is crazy. You know what? I'm not going to take Ludwig. I'm going to take Cam Young.
Okay.
Cam Young. And I'm going to take another pick, and I am going to go with my guy who, for 5'9", has the biggest shoes on planet Earth. He was walking around Augusta with size 20 golf shoes. Rusty Henley. Rusty Henley. I love that pick.
He had the lead late on Sunday, and you thought, is Russell Henley going to be slipping on that green jacket?
Dude, the guy can golf his ball, man. You look at some of the yardages he has going into holes where big hitters are hitting a wedge. This guy's got 227 into some of these holes, and he shreds a 4-iron right at the flag. It's impressive. The guy can golf his ball. Rusty Henley.
I like it.
All with Ronald McDonald shoes.
Yeah,
on.
Exactly. It's not. He needs some Peter Millar swag is what Rusty Henley needs. I'm going to go with Colin Morikawa. My theory is he was just milking his back injury for the cameras.
God, was he was doing the Tiger Woods.
Yeah, it was a
post-car accident limp where he was
you're all right, buddy.
Dude, no one that would be limping like that can walk around Augusta National like
he tore it up over the weekend. He was unbelievable. I think he's just fine, and he could definitely make a run at Augusta. And how about Patty Cantlay, another guy who's had a lot of success at Harbor Town over the years? He had a great weekend at Augusta National. Oh, we are building a powerhouse team, Brian Hayes, here in these TaylorMade picks. Let's go one more each.
Hang on a second. I'm just going to name some guys, and you're going to have to match, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm going to go Giordano Spieth, Maverick McNeely, and Bobby McIntyre.
Bobby McIntyre.
Dude, there's something about Bobby. I think he stunk the joint out. He was giving people the finger at Augusta National. I didn't like that. but he's going to regroup and he's going to battle.
All right, I'm going to go with Akshay Bhatia, who I thought was going to.
He stunk too.
He was terrible at the Masters. I couldn't believe it. He was dialed in after round one. I think he was even.
He was. People were picking him as a favorite.
I liked Akshay, but he's had the weekend off. Was just chilling. Maybe he headed to the RBC Heritage early. Maybe he'll be firing on all cylinders this week. And let's go with Jake Knapp as my final selection. Jake Knapp, great putter. He's had a great season on the PGA Tour. Maybe he could add to his success with a win at Harbour Town.
I'm going to sneak in one more guy.
Okay, sure.
Oh,
go
here
ahead.
we go.
That little weasel, that weasel Sepp Straka. He's a ball striker, and I like him on this track.
I like that a lot. The OverDrive PGA picks brought to you by TaylorMade. Feel the straight distance, feel the forgiveness, feel the confidence as you step into every shot. Learn more about the new QI Max irons at TaylorMadeGolf.ca. Duthie sent me a video. He was playing golf today, and it was literally
I asked him to go to. I asked him. I was in Aurora, seeing my great friend Pete at McAlpine Ford, one of the best guys ever.
Nice.
And I said, Duthie, you want to go for lunch? He goes, I'm on the 11th hole. I just was like...
No, you wouldn't believe the golf course he was playing. It was all water.
I know.
Standing water everywhere.
But he doesn't care.
He's a lunatic.
He's a lunatic. I think he's got honestly a problem.
Yeah, he should check into golf rehab.
He should.
He loves it way too much. I've never seen anything quite like it. All right, I also have some best bets for you, powered by FanDuel. Make your picks, assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I think the Leafs and the Senators tonight, it's on TSN 1050, and I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. If you've been watching the Leafs lately, it's just roller-coaster game, and Joe Bowen deserves to call a lot of goals in his final game as the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm really excited. I will concede. Don't listen to hockey on the radio as much as I probably should as a passionate TSN 1050 employee, but I'm going to be sitting in my condo tonight listening to Bonesy and Ralphie do their thing, and I can't wait.
They should have, the corner box with just Bonesy, on the TV broadcast, just of him up there. I don't know. They got to do something, because I hope it's not a stinker. Unfortunately, it's kind of leaning that way, but hopefully the guys can put on some kind of show.
They will.
Not too good of a show. They still need to lose. The Leafs need to lose. They definitely need to lose.
And shout out, O-Dog, apparently you're speaking tomorrow. Are you doing a little guest banquet thing tomorow?
I am, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it.
So, yeah, the U15 AA OHF tournament. Give them a shout out. It'll be should be exciting this weekend.
All right,
looking
beautiful.
Forward to it.
Fellas, it was a blast. Spend the last couple of hours with you. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes. Brian Hayes will be back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.